was pretty good. Pretty good chow. KFC. After I picked him up from school. No. You know, I was talking about recently, actually not so recently, a few videos back, about the cars that I own now and I had recently. I'll go at it from the other direction.
I like the Jeep.
My very first car, my very first personal car was
Your Jeep.
no, my Jeep wasn't my very first car. My very first car was
The red one. The red car.
I think a 1980 Toyota Corolla. That was my very first car. I was in high school at that time. The car was a 1980. I was in high school. I think that was 1982, 83. Give or take, right? So that was my first real car. Up until that point, I was driving my mother's 1976 Pontiac Grand Prix. I thought that was a badass car. And then my first real car, my personal car, like I just mentioned, was a 1980 Toyota Corolla. We got it white. It was white. It's a used car. Obviously, I said I was driving in 1983. Used car, it was white, but my parents had it repainted like medium red. I say medium red because what's funny is I say medium red. My best friend at the time, Jeremy, said that's not medium red, that's hot pink. And I'm like, no. And he said, yeah, that's hot pink. I'm like, fuck.
I like your Jeep.
And like I said, my friend Jeremy, he wasn't even my friend. He's like, we're like best of friends. My best friend at that time. And what's funny about it, he's teasing me that car's hot pink. He loved driving that car. Every time we would go out at night and cruise or go to a bar or wherever we could go eat or whatever, go to a movie, or just hang out.
I will watch that.
He would want to drive that car, which I found kind of weird because the guy had two Lincoln Continentals back then. One was white, one was blue. And if you're one of those people that knows what a Lincoln Continental back then used to look like, those are big freaking cars. They really were. And he had two of them.
Hey, a bus car. A bus.
He always wanted me to drive his car. When we go out and we use his cars, or one of his cars, he'd always say, hey John, you want to drive the car? And I'm like, no, I don't want to drive your car. And he's like, why? And I'm like, it's as big as a tank. And when you need to take a, you know, like a sharp turn, wow, that thing maneuvers like a boat, like an aircraft carrier. I said, man, it's like you're on a ship on this thing. So, anyway, man, this car could never. The car in front of me keeps changing lanes, like it can't make up its mind where it's going.
I like your Jeep.
Anyway,
I'm going to check out.
then so he had his cars. My car was, like I said, was the Corolla. And then after that car, in 86, I got myself a Pontiac Fiero. It was a two-door sports car. Well, at that time I thought it was a sports car, but it had a lame V6 engine in it. But that car was really fucking fun to drive. That thing was low to the ground. You know, if like, I don't know about now, but back then you'd have some of these parks where you get into a go-kart, you know, they had like a you know, like a lawnmower engine in it, and you know, they had a track so you can go all around the track, go-kart. And it was like practically like a couple inches off the ground. That's what my Pontiac Fiero felt like. It's like, it felt like a couple inches off the ground when you're driving it. It was so fun to drive. It had a lame engine, like I said, but it was still fun to drive. And that was a 6-cylinder American V6. And then after my Pontiac Fiero, a few years later, I had to get rid of that car. I sold it to a used car lot, like maybe 4 years later, because it had so many.
This car.
Yeah, that's a nice Camaro, and it has so many problems, you know, that I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. So I got rid of it. I sold it to, like I said, a used car dealer. Gave me $4,000 for it, and I didn't even tell him what's wrong with the car. Can you imagine if I told the guy that, you know, bought it from me what was wrong with the car? He probably wouldn't even have bought it. But he, you know, I turned it in, and I mean, when I dropped it to the dealer and I was walking away with the money, the check he gave me, I ran to cash that sucker because I can see it's leaking coolant underneath the car, and I'm like, I better cash that check before he decides to call the bank and cancels that check or whatever. So, and then maybe a little while after that, I bought a, I think it was 1991 at that time. I bought me a Toyota pickup, Toyota Hilux. Just a 2-wheel drive model, 2-door, 2-wheel drive. Just your basic truck pickup. And later that year, I got me a nice sports car. I mean a serious sports car, a real sports car. I got me a 1991 Nissan 300ZX. Twin turbo, baby. That car was, I'm gonna use that word again, fucking fun to drive. And that was a real sports car compared to my Pontiac Fiero. That had a twin turbo V6. Oh man, that thing could fly. You know, it had like a cruise mode, a sport mode. When you put it on sport mode, the suspension gets really stiff. That car can fly. I love that car. And then, like, I think 5 years later, that started having issues that I could never seem to get resolved or, you know, completely fixed. The dog don't want to get out of the way. Zan have to honk. It's a chicken. It's a chicken. Did you see it? What? I honk at the dog so I can get out of the way.
Chicken.
And then I saw a chicken. And then what I did with the, like I said, when the Z started giving me problems, I used that as my mother needed a new car at that time, so I used my Z. There's
There's 2 + 2.
my mother needed a new car, so go check grandma. So I used my Z as down payment on a new Honda Accord. Can you see me any better? No. Yeah, like I said, a new Honda Accord. So we traded in the Z for a Honda Accord. This was 1998. Yeah, 1998 Honda Accord, brand new. That was an awesome car. Actually, I shared that car with my mom and my dad. My mom sold her. My mom previously had a Nissan Sentra that she sold to my goddaughter's father. So she was left without a car. So I told my mom I was having issues with my Z. I was thinking about getting rid of it. Why don't we use that as you know, a trade-in for a new car for her. And at that time, everybody was getting Toyota Camrys. Even my dad likes the Toyota Camry. And I told my dad and my mom, I said, no, get on a Honda Accord. Those are great cars, and I love the way they look. They're nice looking cars. And the Accord, as well as the Camry, they're like, for like maybe 15, 20 years, they would be like in the top 10 best cars you could buy every year, 20 years straight or something like that. So, you know, we decided to get a Honda Accord. So I would use the Accord when I needed it. You know, my mom and dad would use it when my dad had his own truck, but that was a company vehicle. So it's like he couldn't use that on, you know, he could use it to go do errands or whatever he needed to do. But if it's like go to the doctor or, you know, go to somebody's funeral or whatever, he would use the Honda. So we had that car. Actually, we still have that car. It's 2016. We still have the 1998 Honda Accord. That car is still a great car. And what's extremely crazy about that car is there's only like 38,000 miles on it. Think about it. 1998 to now, 2016. That's what? 6, 7, 8 years? 18 years. 16... 17, yeah, like 18 years that we've owned that Accord, and it's only got like 38,000 miles on it. Can you believe it? A funny story about that Accord was the first year that we had it, we had to have the alternator changed twice in the first year. And you know why? The mechanic said, we're not driving the car enough. You know, the car would sit in the garage for weeks at a time because if my mom would only drive it to you know, like to go pay bills, run errands, go to the grocery store, and most of that is, you know, not too far away. So she'd only drive it maybe once or twice a week, sometimes once every couple of weeks. I didn't drive it that often either because I still had the Toyota pickup. I still had that truck. So that's my primary vehicle, was the Toyota truck. You know, my dad had his company truck that he would drive to work and, you know, work and home. And then so the Honda would be sitting in the garage, you know, most of the week because my mom rarely left the house, only when she needed to, you know. So anyway, she still has that Honda Accord, like I just, you know, mentioned. So the Toyota pickup is long gone already. It was starting to fall apart, rust like crazy, so we got rid of that. Like maybe even that one we had for a long period of time. Think about it. That was a 1991 Toyota pickup, and we just got rid of that like maybe 3-4 years ago. So that was like 91. Yeah, that was over 20 years. We had that pickup for over 20 years, and we rarely had any problems with that thing. You know, every few years you have to change the tires. You know, we never changed the alternator in that thing. Think about it, 20-year-old truck. We never had to change the alternator. Never really had to change anything else. You know, of course, like, you know, over the course of several years, maintenance is, you know, you have to get a brake job every 3-4 years. You know, new tires every like 3-4 years. You know, things like that. Change the oil every, you know, once a year, twice a year, you know, depending. So that one we just recently, like a couple years back, we got rid of that truck, and that was over 20-year-old car, that truck. So now, right now, it's like I said, you know, back to 2016. My mom still has the Honda Accord, which she doesn't drive that often now. And like I said in my previous video, I have a 2009 Xterra, and recently last year 2015 Xterra. So my wife drives the newer one, the gray 2015. I drive the older one, the 2009. We got used. So you're up to date about what I had what I did have, what I used to have, and what I now have. I hope you're happy. Okay. I just wanted to spit that out of you, right? You probably don't give a shit, but you know, hey, I got it off my chest. Okay. Check in with you guys another time.